If you've been feeling disconnected, tired, or strangely numb, you're not alone. In fact, you're exactly where most people are in 2025. Anxiety is everywhere, depression is common, but beneath those words, beneath the labels and diagnoses, there's a quieter feeling we don't always talk about. Emptiness, not sadness, not stress, just the sense that life is passing and you're not really in it. This video isn't going to give you a productivity hack. It's about something deeper, how to reclaim your mind before you drift too far from it. Let's pause here for a moment. How many times this week did you scroll mindlessly through feeds, messages, videos, without even knowing what you were hoping to find? Just a vague craving to feel something other than dull. How many mornings have begun with a weight in your chest, not from grief exactly, but from a kind of invisible fatigue? You wake up already tired, already behind, already disconnected from the day ahead. And then the thought creeps in. Why does none of this feel like it matters? Most people wouldn't call that depression, but it is a form of suffering, a quiet kind, the kind that doesn't scream, but slowly hollows you out. In 2025, we are more stimulated than ever. Notifications, content, noise, endless access to distraction. But despite all this input, we're starved for something deeper, meaning, direction A, reason for being that isn't handed to us by an algorithm or a schedule. We've mastered the art of getting things done. We know how to optimize, to produce, to stay busy, but somewhere along the way, we forgot to ask the most important question: why? Why are we doing any of it? We're productive, but purposeless, constantly connected, yet deeply unseen. There's a word for this condition, and it's not just burnout. That's only the symptom. The deeper wound is disorientation, a subtle but profound exile from your own center. You no longer recognize your days as your own. You move, but without a compass. And here's the quiet tragedy. This disorientation doesn't just drain energy, it erodes the soul. It leaves you chasing what looks like life, but never quite feels like living. And that's what we're here to talk about. So how did we get here? Part of the answer is obvious. We are living in the most overstimulated era in human history. From the second our eyes open in the morning, our minds are pulled in a dozen directions. Notifications light up our screens. Emails, headlines, group chats. Everyone wants our attention, and no one gives us space to think. It's 1,000 tiny emergencies a day, none of which actually bring peace. But the problem goes deeper than distraction. At some point, we stopped living with intention. We traded ritual for routine, the sacred for the efficient. Instead of moving through life with presence, we began rushing through it like a checklist. We replaced depth with speed, reflection with reaction, and somewhere in that exchange, we began to drift. And here's the hardest truth. Many of us were sold a lie. A lie that said if we optimize enough, if we buy the right tools, say the right affirmations, wake up at 5 a.m. and drink green juice, then happiness will follow. That if we hustle hard enough, meditate long enough, curate the perfect life, then finally we'll feel okay. But no one told us the deeper truth. Happiness isn't something you chase. It's something that follows meaning. It's a byproduct of living in alignment, not an end you can manufacture. When we pursue happiness as the goal, we often feel more hollow than before, because the soul doesn't want quick fixes. It wants purpose, it wants direction. And in the absence of that, when life becomes a loop of tasks without meaning, we begin to spiral, not because we're weak, but because we've lost the map, and it's time to remember where we placed it. In the ruins of post-war Europe, psychiatrist Viktor Frankl stood among the ashes of unspeakable loss and asked a question that still echoes today. How does a person go on living after losing everything? After enduring the Holocaust and witnessing the depths of human suffering, Frankl didn't turn away from the pain. He looked directly into it and searched for meaning. What he discovered was something quietly radical. When a person can't find a deep sense of meaning, he wrote, they distract themselves with pleasure. Frankl called this state the existential vacuum, a hollow, restless ache that seeps in when life feels aimless. It doesn't always look dramatic. Sometimes it shows up as boredom, apathy, or a compulsive need to be entertained. but underneath is a deeper wound, a life unanchored. And while Frankl observed this vacuum in the aftermath of war, we're now living in it as the default. In 2025, the existential vacuum isn't a rare spiritual crisis, it's our baseline. Numbness, distraction, the constant chase for dopamine. They're symptoms of a deeper hunger, not for more pleasure, but for more purpose. But here's where Frankl offered hope. He didn't believe the answer was to escape suffering. He believed the answer was to find meaning inside the suffering. Not, why is this happening to me? But rather, what is life asking of me now? What task is mine alone to carry? What truth needs my voice? For Frankl, this wasn't philosophical fluff. It was how he survived Auschwitz, by anchoring himself to a future task, a manuscript he wanted to finish, a patient he wanted to help. He endured what others could not. That's the power of a why. When you have it, the how becomes bearable. And today, Frankl's insight is more than history. It's a blueprint, a quiet reminder that even in the dark, meaning is still possible and still waiting to be chosen. So what do we do with all of this? How do we turn off the noise, quiet the chaos, and return to something real, something that actually matters? It starts not with a productivity hack or a motivational quote, but with a shift in how we relate to ourselves, not just our schedules, but our inner life. The first step, reframe your emotions as messages. We're often taught to treat anxiety or emptiness as problems to fix, chemical issues to medicate, or mindsets to push through. But what if instead we saw them as signals, not signs that something is wrong with us, but that something within us is being neglected? Your anxiety isn't random. It's not just a glitch in your brain. Sometimes it's your soul's way of knocking, gently or urgently, asking you to pay attention. Ask yourself, what part of me is being ignored? What truth am I trying not to see? Discomfort can be a compass. Behind the fear, the restlessness, the numb scrolling, there is often a hidden value, something meaningful you've drifted away from. It might be a longing for freedom, a hunger for creativity, a need for authenticity or connection. Instead of silencing that discomfort, sit with it, listen. In stillness, real stillness, not scrolling or multitasking or noise, you may hear something you've been too busy to notice, your deeper self trying to guide you back to alignment, back to a life that feels like yours again. You don't have to solve everything today, but you can begin by putting the phone down just for a moment, breathing, asking questions that matter, honoring the signals instead of fearing them. Because reclaiming your mind doesn't begin with doing more. It begins with remembering who you are beneath the noise. Second, choose meaning, not mood. We live in a culture that's obsessed with feeling better. Everywhere you look, there's another promise of quick relief, a new habit tracker, a new supplement, a new way to hack your happiness. And don't get me wrong, there's nothing wrong with wanting to feel good. But if we build our lives around mood management, we end up chasing comfort at the cost of depth. Because life doesn't always offer immediate relief. There are days, even seasons, when joy feels distant, when clarity is hard to find, and even getting out of bed feels like an act of resistance. In those moments, it's not mood that sustains us, it's meaning. Meaning asks more of us. It doesn't promise ease, but it offers something far more valuable, a sense of inner anchoring, a reason to keep going even when things are hard. Viktor Frankl understood this deeply. He believed meaning arises from three places: work that matters, love that connects, and suffering willingly endured for something greater than yourself. So instead of asking, how can I feel better right now? Try asking, what am I willing to suffer for? What cause, connection, or creative effort is worth the pain, the discomfort, the sacrifice? That's where your why lives. And once you find that, once you connect with something you're willing to carry through difficulty, you stop needing every day to feel good. You start needing it to mean something. Because a meaningful life isn't always a happy one, but it is a resilient one. And in a world that changes as quickly as ours, resilience is worth more than any temporary high. Third, create sacred time. Modern life is a machine built to devour your attention. Every notification, every email, every scroll is designed to pull you away from yourself. And if you don't protect your attention, it disappears, quietly but completely. That's why you need sacred time. Sacred time isn't about productivity. It's not for optimizing, achieving, or checking off another box. It's the opposite. It's time that belongs entirely to you, unplugged, unhurried, and even a little boring. But within that quiet, something powerful happens. Your inner life begins to resurface. In the stillness, reflection returns. You begin to notice the thoughts under the noise, the emotions behind the busyness. Your mind, which has been running all day like a machine, finally has space to breathe. And in that breath, you start to remember who you are. This doesn't require hours. Even 15 minutes a day can change the way you move through the world. A short walk with no phone, a journal entry that no one will read, a few minutes of silence with nothing to prove, nothing to fix. That's not laziness. That's resistance against a culture that says your worth depends on constant output. And it's recovery, a return to your center where clarity lives. Sacred time isn't a luxury. It's a lifeline. In a world that's always trying to claim your focus, it's how you claim yourself. So make space, guard it, treat it like something holy, because in that protected time where no one else has a claim on your mind, you begin to find the threads of meaning again. And those threads, they're what hold you together when the world pulls you apart. If this resonates, if part of you knows you're not living as fully or as honestly as you could, consider subscribing or leaving a comment, not for the algorithm, but to mark a turning point in your story. You're not alone in this, and you don't have to navigate the void without a map. Most of us don't actually need more advice. Deep down, we already know what's missing. We can feel it in the quiet moments, in the pause after the scrolling stops, or the way our chest tightens when we think about another week that went by without feeling fully alive. It's not that we're clueless, it's that we're crowded. We haven't had space to listen. Because in a world that prizes distraction, reflection becomes an act of rebellion. Sometimes what we really need is permission to stop pretending everything's fine, to stop pushing through, numbing out, or performing a life that doesn't feel like our own. And more than anything, we need the courage to start again, to admit that we've drifted, and to gently begin the return. Viktor Frankl offered a compass for that return. Life is never made unbearable by circumstances, he wrote, but only by lack of meaning. It's a truth we often forget. We assume our suffering comes from what's happening around us, the stress, the uncertainty, the pressure. But what makes pain unbearable is the absence of a why. Without meaning, even small things crush us. With meaning, we can carry far more than we thought possible. In 2025, the emptiness so many feel is real, but it isn't final. It's not a dead end. It's an invitation, a doorway into something deeper. An invitation to slow down, to remember what you once loved before life became so fast, to reconnect with values that got buried beneath productivity, to stop outsourcing your identity to algorithms and noise, and begin building again from the inside out. This is the path of reclamation, not perfection, not constant motivation, just honesty, stillness, intention. You can reclaim your mind, you can make it your home again. What's something you stopped doing that used to make you feel alive? Maybe it was painting late at night just for yourself. Maybe it was long walks without a destination, or the way you used to write thoughts in the margins of books. Maybe it was phone calls with someone who really knew you, or sitting in silence without reaching for your phone. We all have something like that, a part of ourselves that got left behind in the rush of growing up, surviving, adapting, and sometimes naming it is the first step to finding our way back. So take a moment, pause, reflect. What's something you used to do, not for validation or achievement, but simply because it made you feel real? Leave it in the comments. Let's start a conversation, because your answer might awaken something in someone else too. That's the power of shared reflection. And if this video spoke to you, if you've been wrestling with that quiet disconnection, the sense that something essential has gone missing, then I invite you to go deeper. Watch our next video, Overthinking and the Fear of the Unknown. Because healing doesn't always begin with fixing, it begins with facing, with meeting the dark places of our minds, not with fear, but with curiosity, and choosing, even in uncertainty, to carry a light, not someone else's, your own. You're not broken, you're being called back, and sometimes the first step is simply remembering who you used to be before the world got so loud.